Let me just ask you a quick list of questions. You're going to say love it or hate it, okay?
Okay.
All right. Going to college.
I think for the right person, it's awesome. But I think we put too much value on a college education, and we've lost the tradesman.
Donald Trump.
Mixed emotions. I like some of the decisions he made as president. I don't like the image of being a New York brawler.
Okay. Joe Biden.
I think he's incompetent. I don't think he's medically fit for office.
Which one would you rather have, the brawler or the incompetent?
I'm waiting to see if we get any other choices.
Hey guys, welcome to the Cardone Zone and our special episode of Power Players. Today I have a special guest, Dave Liniger, who founded Remax. He's co-founder. 45 years he's been playing this game with Remax. Unbelievable what he's done. He's spoken to 3 million people around the world. Remax, as you might know, just got settled a $55 million lawsuit that we'll be talking about that is totaling in the billions of dollars. That's very controversial. We'll talk about the housing industry, the market, the challenge for the buyer's agent going forward, and much, much more. Thank you for joining Power Players, and thank you for watching us here at 10X Studios. Tell me, Dave, what were you doing before you founded Remax?
I was in the United States military, and when I came back from Vietnam, they assigned me to Arizona State University, ROTC detachment. And at my military career, I started flipping houses. Back then, the prices were way different, of course, in the 60s. But I would buy a house for $10,000, a little bit down, do most of the fix up myself, and get it resold. And it was very profitable. Along the line, I decided I'd get a real estate commission, not a license, not to make a living, but to save commissions on my investment properties. As I came to the end of my service in the Air Force, I thought, well, I had to try selling real estate. I struggled with it for several months, but eventually figured it out, got the right mentors, got the right training. And so I sold real estate for the last 6 months of 71, hated the desert at the time. And so moved to Denver, Halloween of 71, interviewed with several real estate companies and had my choice of where I wanted to go. So I worked with the best one in town for a year as I got my residency and got my broker's license. And then I decided to go out on my own.
Well, hey, thank you for your service, number one. And thank you for your long, very successful career as an entrepreneur and a self-starter. What was, when you were buying houses in 1960 for $10,000, would you do something to them to fix them? And was flipping a thing back then? Was that a thing, or were you one of the first to do that?
No, I tried to hold them for investments, but on the low income of a military guy, I pretty much, once I got them fixed up, I had to turn them over so I could get the next bigger project.
Yeah. Do you regret selling those homes now that you look back?
No, actually, I was in Davis Monthan, Tucson, Arizona, on one tour of duty. And I've had the opportunity to go back there. That was back in the early 60s, and see a couple of the properties I owned at that time. So no, it's okay.
Are any of those homes still for sale, or are people living in them?
One of them was gone. Somebody had taken over the entire block and built an apartment complex. And then one of them, people are living in it.
Yeah. What do you think that house is worth today?
Probably 300 to 400,000.
Yeah, so it went up 30 or 40 times, and probably paid somebody cash flow while they rented it.
I'm sure.
So you were flipping at that time simply to make a living. What was causing you to want to do that other than just pay the bills?
When I was a teenager, I read a very famous book, Think and Grow Rich. It's been the foundation of a lot of people's success. It's basically on goal setting and achieving goals. And at that time, I read another book, How I Turned $1,000 into $1 million in My Part-Time by William Nickerson. And he was a employed individual in, I believe, Southern California. And at the time he wrote that book, it was a bestseller. It was actually used as a college textbook.
Wow.
For real estate industry, for property management. And his simple concept was buy a house that's in a good neighborhood that needs fixed up and is, can cosmetically be improved with things like better landscaping, fresh paint, maybe new carpets and tiles and new appliances and so on, and rent them and then go buy a couple more and a couple more. And at his height, he had literally 1,000 some units underneath him, and it was quite an inspiration. So that's kind of put those two concepts together and thinking maybe that would be my future.
Yeah. So you're how old at this point?
I was what?
You're in your 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're in your 20s. You just got out of the military. You're reading Think and Grow Rich and How to Turn $1,000 into $1 million. You could have picked a million other titles. Why were you drawn to wealth creation and possibility and prosperity and wealth?
Well, you know, I was a medium student in high school. I wasn't very motivated. I tried to enter the Air Force Academy, and I was the first alternate, but my grades probably kept me from being that. My parents insisted that I go to college. I was in a small farming community, Marion, Indiana. They were business owners, and they thought that was the appropriate thing to do. I went to college off and on for 2 or 3 semesters. It just wasn't my thing. I was very young, unmotivated, took some wrong classes and didn't have a mentor or counselor that could have told me, hey, withdraw from them and get something else you can do. And so I just gave up on that and went into the military. And all along, I was trying to think out, what is my future? And if I'd been an officer, if I could have made good money, if I had been a pilot or something, I probably would have stayed as a career Air Force person. But as it worked out, I started doing extremely well on the house buying, and it fit my personality. I was willing to work 18-hour days, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it is, and quite a history that you have made, my friend. 45 years ago, you founded Remax. Is that right? Were you the founder by yourself, a co-founder? Was there a partner?
I consider myself a co-founder. January the 30th of 1973, I filed my incorporation papers, and I knew that I was an outstanding real estate agent. I knew I could teach sales, and that was kind of the limit of my capacity. So I immediately started interviewing for an administrative vice president. And at the time, I did interview 27 women. I turned 27 down. And what I was looking for was somebody with a college education, somebody that could hire and fire and supervise secretaries and bookkeepers, could locate office locations, negotiate and buy furniture, set up the offices, decorate them, and literally manage the business. And the 28th that I interviewed was a young girl by the name of Gail Maine, and she had just gotten married. She was a trailing spouse. Her husband and she were moving from St. Louis. He was going to run a department store for AD&F, and 5 minutes into the conversation, she had a degree in management and marketing. She had a management and marketing position with Ralston Purina for 2 or 3 years. sharp, very confident, just incredibly interesting woman. So I sold, I sold like a son of a gun. And I told him, man, he helped me build this company. I'm going to build the largest real estate company in the world. And if you can help me build it, you can be the president, CEO. I don't want to run the thing. I just want to make it work. And she agreed to it. It was the best decision I've ever made, as a matter of fact. We ended up 10 years as business partners. And at the end of 10 years, we were both divorced, and the only people I knew were Remax people. And so she and I became romantically involved at that time. So we've had a great
deal
51-year partnership. I'm sorry?
Closed another deal.
I fell in love with her.
Yeah.
And we had a common enemy. That's the rest of the industry.
Yeah.
As we hired our various officers, the industry was very much against us. I went from being president-elect of my board of realtors to being thrown off the board when I announced the formation of Remax.
Why Remax? Why'd you call it Remax? I've always wondered how you guys came up with that name.
I didn't want to call it Dave Liniger Realty. The ego part was just not my part.
Yeah.
We tried to come up with a good name. And at that time, Exxon had just been renamed, 5 letters, meant nothing. And nobody had ever trademarked it before. And so I sat around with 4 or 5 of my Vietnam buddies, and we were discussing names. And we finally came up with real estate maximums because of the commission concept. And we thought we had to shorten that to RE Max. And we thought maybe somebody would think somebody's name of the company was Mr. or Mrs. RE Max. So we took out the periods and threw in a slash and came up with Remax.
Dude, that's amazing, man. How many homes has Remax been responsible for selling over 45 years? Like, we're talking trillions of dollars, right?
Oh, just millions and millions. We do about $1.8 million in property transactions a year right now.
1.8 million a year. So for 45 years, what'd you do the first year? You probably didn't do that the first year, right?
We did 33 million in volume. So it was probably 200 houses.
Yeah, so you did 33 million volume of commissionable volume or total gross volume. How do you measure it in your industry?
That was gross volume.
So you were involved in $33 million worth of house transactions. What did you do last year?
Oh, I haven't seen the statistics finally yet.
Best year you ever had.
It probably is $500 billion a year in total real estate transactions.
My God, man. What a great mark you've made on the planet. Now you brought up enemies of the industry. Okay. Here at Power Players, we have a lot of people on here that have been extremely successful. You are absolutely one of them. And a lot of these guys, including myself, talk about the value of having an enemy. Talk to me about that. You brought it up. I didn't.
Yeah. Well, you have to understand the concept of most real estate companies is they split their commissions with their agents that work for them. And in the 1970 era, the commission split was usually 50% of the listing commission went to the company and 50% to the listing agent. 50% of the selling commission went to the company and 50% to the selling agent. And so everybody thought they were on a 50-50 commission split. But in reality, the company got their half and they paid for their overhead, secretaries, marketing, advertising, signs, legal, whatever, and tried to earn a profit. The agent got their 50%, but there's no such thing as benefits. And so they had to pay 100% of their own Social Security. There's no retirement plan, so they pay their own retirement plan. There's no medical insurance for most realtors. And so they have their own costs. Plus, they've got their own personal promotion, entertainment, automobile, insurance. And so by the time they pay those expenses off their 50%, they probably are down to 30. In 1971, the average full-time realtor in the United States grossed $5,000. In building Remax, we tried to come up with several different ideas. And what we really came up with was we should be a co-op. We should be like a group of doctors, lawyers, architects that work in the same facility, share the general overhead expenses, pay our own expenses, and keep the rest for ourselves. And as it happened at that time, that was coming out to be about 85% was going to the agent. And then they still had personal expenses like automobile and Social Security and such. But it was a much better deal. The problem we ran into was, number one, the industry hated me for it, because if it worked, that meant that they were going to have to pay all their agents, especially the good producers, a much higher commission split. They also were looking at it as, well, this is just Rent-A-Desk. You don't care about your agents like we do, and that we train and we have management meetings and we have all kinds of programs for our agents, and all you want to do is rent a desk and not work. Now, they got that wrong. I worked for the best company in town called Van Schok and Company, where the average realtor made $5,000 a year full time. The average Van Schok man made $50,000 a year full time. Van Schok and Moore had 50% of the market. It's about 500 men between them. They did not hire women in a sales position. And so all this controversy and trying to get people to come to work for us, the most likely people that would come to work for me at that time should have been one of those men from those full-time companies. But not a single man from either of those companies joined us in the first 5 years. So
yeah, why do you think that is? Nobody came over.
Every single one said, this sounds like a stroke of genius, but I'm already working for the biggest and best company in town.
Right.
I've got lots of leads. I've got a well-known name. We get a lot of business that small companies never get. You prove that it works, and I'll be working for you someday.
Yeah. This is before the consolidation. We're talking about very fragmented industry back then, real estate agents all over the United States. Ad budgets probably weren't consolidated. You didn't have major names. You didn't have any publicly traded companies. Can you just talk about how different it was then than it is today?
Well, the business was much simpler. If you took a listing, it was a one-page listing form. If you wrote a contract, FHA or VA, it was 2 pages. Nobody had thought of agency, buyer's agents, seller's agents. Litigation explosion came about in the middle of the 70s. And so now today, if you have a listing agreement, it might be 20 pages long. A sales purchase agreement might be 25 pages long. And of course, over the last 55 years, everybody wants an inspection for the building, the property, the roof. Everybody wants to know, are there any child molesters or pedophiles within 2 or 3 blocks of the house? So it's become a much more complex business than it was then.
Who are your common enemies today? Since you had them then, you probably have more now, right?
You know, it was interesting. The enemies at first were the biggest brokers in the cities that we were working in. And then, you know, the national companies really came about in the 70s. ERA, Century 21, a whole bunch of them about 72 or 73. Then Sears bought Coldwell Banker, which was strictly a commercial company.
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
And so they switched, and their mantra was, we're going to be number 1, 2, or 3 in the 100 largest cities in the United States. They were never going to franchise. Merrill Lynch saw that. And they said, oh, we'll do that too. And then Prudential said the same thing. The whole concept of the public companies was, look, we're at Sears, buy your garden hoses and fix up your property at Sears, but buy your house through Coldwell Banker, get your insurance through Allstate, and buy your mortgage through us. Everybody thought if you can control the agent, you can control the customer. And so the three major brands that were public found out that they can't control the agent. The agent doesn't just necessarily say, hey, at one time Century 21 was owned by TWA, and TWA owned Hilton, and they also owned Hertz. And so the whole concept was people relocate, use a C21 agent, use our travel agency, use our airplanes, et cetera. The realtors are so independent, none of them are on salary to speak of. And so they don't want to automatically give their customer to another company and say, well, you provide the title insurance, you provide the mortgage. They've all got friends in the business. And they've got people that have trusted for years that get their deals through, and they don't want to be told by the big bad boss, you'll have to use this company for everything.
So right today there's EXP, Redfin, Sotheby's, Keller's, Compass, Home Services, Redfin, Remax. Like how many different groups are there, and where do you now stand with that, I guess, list of enemies?
Let me address the enemy thing again. At the time, I fought hard for 20 or 30 years.
It's your military background, man. There's got to be an enemy to have a mission.
So, but, if they hadn't badmouthed me so bad, I think I possibly could have filed bankruptcy and just given up after 2 or 3 years. But having that many enemies saying you're a crook and you're not, and not only that, every agent we got started making a lot more money. They were intensely loyal to the company. And so it's just a slow start. But when it took off, it took off. And so all those people were in their 50s and 60s at the peak of their business experience. And we're in our 20s. Well, fast forward 50 years, they're all dead.
Yeah.
I've forgotten they were enemies. I don't even think about them anymore. And over the last 20 years, I and my team have new people coming in. I think we have a different attitude towards competition in that it doesn't bother me anymore. Of course, there's going to be different people want to do different things, and that we became the icon. But once you're number one, you'll find out everybody wants to take you down.
Where does Remax rate today amongst those companies? Are you number one, two,
we're
three, four?
We're number one in the world in real estate transactions and volume. We're in 110 countries, I think it's close to 150,000 agents.
Wow.
Probably 50,000 employees in all the various franchises out there. There's a couple of companies that might have more agents, but nobody's in nearly as many countries as we are. And so we're at the top of the heap, I guess. And we reinvent ourselves all the time. And we're still motivated to excel.
Yeah. And you're publicly traded now. How long have you been a public company?
About 10 or 11 years, I guess.
Yeah. Do you still own stock in the company?
No, I still got almost half ownership of the company.
Oh, okay. So you're heavily invested.
Yeah, we're just slightly less than 50%, but that's okay.
Yeah. What do you think about? Yeah, exactly. What do you think about some of these other models that have popped up now? And how are they different? Like, how is the EXP model different than the Remax model?
Well, the whole industry has gotten away from anything close to a 50-50 commission split. And so to keep from losing everybody, the better producers have been going up to 75-25 or even 90-10. Each company likes to pound their chest and say they're the best at this and that. If you look at the statistical studies, the Remax agents outproduce the other full-time agents about 3-1, and with over twice as much experience in years. So we're positioned very well to handle any kind of a market. We've got some good competitors out there. I've got a lot of respect for. Home services tends to be on the more professional of our competitors. Coldwell Banker certainly is one of the more professional. They've run their businesses much better than just hiring anybody that comes in. The Consumer Federation in the United States just came up with a 13-page study of the real estate industry. And I don't know if you have that or not, but I would be delighted to send the hyperlink to you.
Yeah, I'd
it
love
is
to
a
see it.
fascinating look. And it comes out that more than 50% of the agents have not made a sale in the last 12 months.
Wow.
And there's a significant amount that do less than 5 transactions. So,
But hadn't that, in all fairness, hadn't that been the case for 50 years, that 80% of the agents don't do much at all? I mean, I've been buying real estate for 35 years.
Yep.
And I have a lot of friends in the real estate business, and I've met some unbelievable real estate agents, some masters at the game. But for the most part, in all fairness, most real estate agents, in my humble opinion, do not know the market, have not been in the homes, do not know comps. They can't really talk about financing. They don't know how to talk to investors. They're not well educated. They know very little about sales and even less about marketing.
Yeah, the 80-20 rule is very prevalent in our industry for sure. The turnover rate is extraordinarily high. A lot of people get talked into becoming a real estate agent. I think it's a glamorous job. You ride around in a nice car, buy a nice lunch. It's clean work. You don't have to dig a ditch, or you don't have to be a carpenter and be out in the cold. But once they come in, 2 things happen very quickly. The first one is they have to learn the business. And at the same time, they have to earn a living of some kind. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people, 90 days, 180 days in, still not a single dollar of earnings, they just give up.
And what do you think, what percentage of real estate agents would you say have a good work ethic?
I honestly think you got 20% of really good producers that statistically are so different. Average time in business, 15 years, average incomes, well in excess of $100,000 to $200,000 a year. They're getting 70-80% of their business from repeats and referrals because they have given outstanding customer service. So real estate is the worst paying easy job in the world, but it's the best paying hard job in the world if you can manage the longevity, get the experience, and build up a book of business.
And what do you think it is the agents are most deficient in? Is it sales, marketing, follow-up, goal setting, not quitting? What would you say? Because I know you've talked to over 3 million people about these topics in 30 countries.
Yeah, that's there's an interesting fact for you. If you look at major luxury brands like Four Seasons Resorts or Ritz-Carlton's, they pay the same union fees for their help. But the difference is other companies will interview 2 people and select one of the 2. Those luxury models, they're paying the same amount. They'll interview 30 and take 1. If you go back to how I hired Gail, I I was very picky. I turned down 27.
Yeah.
I hit the jackpot with a good one. And so everybody thinks that the luxury brands are paying more for their labor, and it's not true. They search and find people who are already friendly, warm, hardworking, committed to the company, and that selection process works. So it's the same thing with a real estate agent. Real estate agents, if you're not outgoing and have a nice, friendly personality, people aren't going to want to work for you. We're not bookkeepers. We're not accountants. We're warm, gregarious, outgoing people.
So do you think that, what is the skill set you think that the real estate agent that is committed to getting better, to getting in the top 20%, what skill sets other than being gregarious or outgoing, what do they need to work on?
You need to understand marketing. In today's era, you better grasp digital marketing. Other places still work, but as you can see, newspapers have disappeared. And it used to be the best source of leads that an agent could get would be a repeat or referral customer. If you're a beginner, you don't got any of those.
Right.
The second best source of leads for probably up to 10, 15 years ago was a for sale sign. They've already been in the neighborhood. They saw the building and they want to know how much is it and what's it cost and can you show it to me? Well, today everybody talks about lead generation from all the portals, but there are literally 100 million leads generated a month in various portals, and yet there's only 4 or 5 million transactions a year out of all those leads. So like in Remax, probably 75% of our top producers won't even look at an internet lead.
Wow. So where are they getting the leads from? Just open houses, sold signs, or repeats and referrals?
Yeah. Repeats and referrals for the top producers is the most important thing there is.
When is the last time you did an open house, Dave?
It's been over, I guess, 45 years.
When's the last time you've been at the closing table on a deal?
Other than things I bought for myself, 45 years.
Okay. So how important, you're a guy that got out of the military, started flipping houses, if I have the story right, end up becoming one of the largest real estate operators on the planet. How important is this idea of scaling beyond your current situation? How important is scaling to a company or to an individual?
Scalability is incredibly important. In the franchise industry, in the United States, we have 4,000 franchisors who are trying to spread around the country. There's 10 of us that have at least 10,000 units each. Then it drops down dramatically to a bunch of brands that have 100 to 400, and then it really gets skinny, and you end up with probably 60% of the industry has fewer than 20 operating units. Every year, 400 more.
When you refer to a unit, David, what are you speaking of?
If you talk about units, like Marriott is one of the top 10 in the United States, and literally now they've got tens of thousands of hotels and businesses they manage around the world. So the rule of thumb in franchising is that it's a scalable operation, but you don't make money until you have at least 100 units open.
Got it.
And so you've got 80% of the people out there have less than 10 or 20, and so they're not profitable yet. And the problem they get into is they don't know how. How do you raise the money? How do you get the private equity companies interested? You can't go public with 10 units. And then you've got the leadership, the management, the marketing, the sales. You got various state and federal laws. Everybody says, I want to be a franchisor, but they don't realize that realistically, you better start with $5 to $10 million to have the whole concept set up. And then you've got to market to beat heck until you can get up to breaking even. Until you get to 100 units, you have to sell more franchises and live off the franchise sales income and not worry about the royalty income.
Yeah, just so I understand, when units mean franchise locations?
Yes.
So Remax has how many units?
Oh, it's 9,000 something.
Okay, got it. If you had to pick one of these, sales or marketing, you can't pick them both. Which is most important?
I would say that in franchising, it's selling the franchises. To get the scalability you need a lot of units open. All great franchisors provide 4 or 5 things. It doesn't matter whether it's McDonald's or if it's Remax or if it's Marriott. That is, number 1, they have a unique product or service. Number 2, they have market share and a brand name. Number 3, they have training, systems, and technology. And number 4, they have group purchasing. So if you look at McDonald's, they're the biggest purchaser of potatoes in the world.
Wow.
And they're on contract with farmers all over the world for the next 5 years' crop. They've already agreed to it. They have inflationary adjustments so the farmer can make a profit, but they're literally buying a farmer's entire crop for 5 years in advance. And so I own a private golf course, no members. We use it for charitable fundraising events. And I went to my pro. We do have a pro shop, and we sell about $1 million worth of golf balls, shirts, caps, that sort of thing. And I said, "Do you have any catalogs?" I'm thinking, let's try to buy a set of new clubs for me for wholesale. And he smiled at me and he says, "Dave, we don't sell clubs. To be honest with you, figure out which clubs you want, then go to Goldsmith or something like that. They sell retail far less than what we can buy something wholesale." That's the scalability of it.
Got it. So which would you tell an agent they should focus on? If the agent had to focus on 1 in 24, would it be the sales or the marketing as a skill set? I
would say that a new salesman has to take any kind of a deal he can get a hold of.
Yeah.
Most of the really successful top producers, they specialize. They'll either be buyer agents or they'll be seller agents. It used to be that the word farming was proper. Pick a subdivision with 500 houses, become the expert in that neighborhood, go door to door, meet the neighbors, do a constant mail out campaign, make yourself a big fish in a small pond.
What does the term 10X mean to you?
Connectivity?
10X. No, 10X.
10X?
Yeah, 10X. I wrote a book called The 10X Rule, and I always ask my guests, what does the term 10X, the number 10 with an X, mean to you?
Oh, I've got it. I'm sorry. Oh, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I read in the bio that your 10X conferences are the biggest business conferences in the country.
Yes, sir. Paid for. Not like Microsoft would do a bigger conference, but they force their people to go.
Yeah. How many people do you usually have?
We've had 34,000.
Wow.
And another probably 50 to 100,000 online.
That is just awesome.
Yeah, people buy, and the tickets are like 4,000 to 20 grand.
Wow.
But I'd rather own 50% of Remax, I got to tell you.
Well, I think that people don't understand. I've not read the book on 10X, but basically to me, it's you have to focus on the area of your business that's going to give you the greatest return for the time that you're spending. And that's the difference between the everyday real estate agent that's out fumbling around, and somebody that is really takes their business as being extremely important to them, and they make it a passion, and they're devoting all their energies to maximizing everything they do with the least amount of effort.
How important is mentorship and examples and coaching, do you think?
Well, I think it's incredibly important. Human beings mirror their surroundings. If you look at a small child that's maybe a month old, and mommy and daddy are cooing over it, smiling and trying to laugh, but by the time they're 5 or 6 years old, they want to grow up to be like mom and dad. And by the time they're 10 or 12, they want to grow up to be with their peers, and they have the rebellious years. And so I think about 95% of learning is by mirroring and by storytelling. And storytelling is having examples to where you can prove a point rather than preaching is very important.
Dave, talk to me about the current real estate the lawsuit, the $1.8 billion verdict. Buyers and sellers have been around for years. Every deal that I've ever done, I've bought, I don't know, almost $5 billion worth of real estate. Bought a bunch of residential real estate. I've always known on every deal exactly what the seller was getting paid, the seller side and the buyer side. If the buyer's side did not represent me and I didn't want to bring one on and pay somebody 3% for that side of the action, I didn't. I don't understand this lawsuit. I don't understand how they pulled it off.
Well, the concept is very controversial. I don't know whether it's ever going to hold up, but the basic claim is you have two sides to every purchase and sale. And so you have a buyer's agent representing the buyer, seller's agent representing the seller. The National Association of Realtors and various MLSs a few years ago came up and put in the code of ethics, how to split the commissions between buyers and sellers. When buyer agency first came up, nobody would pay a buyer. They'd just say, I'll go to a dual agent. I'm not going to pay a commission to buy something. And so the buyers and sellers agents and businesses decided the seller would pay the commission, but would let the seller know that if you pay a 5 or 6 or 7 or 2%, whatever it is, that we're splitting the commission with the buyer agent. The whole concept, I think, was that often, especially a first-time buyer, they're kind of hurting to even come up with a down payment and the closing costs and an additional 2 or 3% or whatever it comes out to. And so that system worked. The first class action suit ended up being 3 of them over 2 or 3 years, one in Kansas City, one in Chicago, and one in New England. They took a legal theory and they said, well, NAR set these rules in place about 6 or 7 years ago. And then they must have met with the 4 or 5 biggest realtors in the United States, which included Home Services, Remax, Keller, I can't remember who else. And so it worked its way through the trial circuit. It came up to a trial that was going to occur in October and November. And so Remax has been involved probably in several hundred pieces of litigation in the United States. When you look at the millions of properties we've done, we don't settle. I think that's a bad thing to do. If the company's wrong stay out of a lawsuit, make it up to the customer, apologize, pay it, and stay out of court. So we were looking at this case, and we were pretty confident that we were on good grounds on being able to get out of the lawsuit in Kansas City, but we weren't so sure in Chicago or in New England. And to me, it seemed to me that if any one of those three cases would succeed, that every attorney in the country would jump on the ship and start suing everybody for everything. So the mediators wanted us to settle. We worked it out between the plaintiff's attorneys and our staff. And we ended up, it's a public knowledge, I settled for $55 million. To this day, I don't think my agents did a thing that was wrong. I think that that might be proven at some point. But what it was a universal settlement out of any existing or any future litigation on those standards. Well, the jury went out. I had great attorneys, so we weren't even at the trial. We were in good financial shape. We had the money to pay off the suit and to get the freedom for our agents and brokers not to worry about this stuff. They did the trial. The jury went out for less than 3 hours, came back in for the requested $1.7 billion or 1.5, something like that. And it's automatically trebled because it's an antitrust action. So the three remainders in it, they're looking at a $7 billion judgment, which nobody's got that kind of money in the real estate industry.
Yeah, so
and the attorneys know it.
You look like I think you settled Corcoran. Who else was it? Remax, Anywhere Real Estate, who used to be Reality, right?
Yes.
Caldwell. And Sotheby's all settled, I think, for a total of $140 million. At the time when you did that, I was like, why did you guys bail out on that deal? But now with this settlement that could reach into the $7 billion.
Well, the thing that's really scary, Grant, is that the day the jury came in, the plaintiff's attorneys went out and sued 8 additional companies. Then they started adding Hannah, Weichert, they added Redfin, et cetera, et cetera. And so suing somebody's expensive. Mm-hmm. And a nationwide class action suit, you have to do so much discovery and go in depth so much. It's millions, tens of millions of dollars to do that. Well, they got their war chest because 2 of us settled. And so that day they filed suit. Since then, copycat suits are being filed every place in the United States. And amazingly, they're going after regional companies and smaller companies. The original complaint was just against the biggest ones. But all over the country, they have a local attorney that goes after a company that has 100 agents. And their attitude is, well, if this worked on a national basis, you have 100 agents, they're doing 10 transactions a year each is 1,000 transactions. You go back 6 or 7 years, you had 7,000 transactions. And if you can get a $4,000 or $5,000 judgment for each one of those commissions, it's
$4 million.
Time to buy a yacht.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's the problem, is the copycat stuff. Now, everybody says they're going to appeal, but ordinarily in most antitrust activities, if you appeal, you got to post a 10% bond.
Wow.
And so you look at a company and they're jointly and severally liable. So you look at a company like Keller, and they don't have the cash flow or the cash. If you look at their audited financial statements on their franchise documents, to pay, $500 million.
Yeah.
just for a bond to appeal something?
So it's your belief that they're litigating the system. They're just basically suffocating a company until they tap out and settle
Yep.
because they can't cash flow the activity. Let me ask you now, shifting to, I mean, I don't have to have a buyer's agent. It's my choice to pick, to call somebody and say, hey, represent me in this deal. I don't have to have that. In most countries, the buyer's agent doesn't even exist. So it's, for the last 30 years, I had to sign a document saying this guy's going to represent me, right? They didn't make me do that.
You're very sophisticated. I mean, the amount of business that you've done in the real estate sector is amazing. Unfortunately, most people only now, our current up and coming generations, will probably, if they buy a house, will only do that 2 or 3 times in their lifetime.
Let me ask you this: what's your comment on the current state of the housing market?
Well, obviously, it's a very cyclical business, and it depends on the economy, of course. I try to tell our own agents that we used to say that Remax had the best agents in the business. They were the best trained, the best managed, best experience. And we've lived through 9 different presidencies. A couple of them are out and out crooks. Some of them were just stupid. 1 or 2 might have been worth something. We're still here. We've been through 8 recessions, starting with the oil embargo in 1973, the second oil embargo, the savings and loan collapse in 1980, which, by the way, the interest rates went up to 16.5%, trying to kill inflation. Right now, it's back down to about 6.7%. That's still awful high. We had a 15-year time period where the interest rates were 2.5 to 5. You've got 60% of the mortgages in the country are less than 5%. So that creates the problem we've got of no inventory. People have a low rate of interest. They don't want to move up. They don't want to sell it and then have to come up with more down payment and then pay 6.5% interest on twice the house price. And so they're reluctant to put houses on the market. And so that means a tremendous amount of people that are trying to buy, but they can't afford it, and there's no inventory.
What do you think about the last couple of questions here for you? And I appreciate your time, Dave, and I appreciate, again, your success. Long 40 years of being successful. What do you think about the current state of single-family homes turning into rental properties? I've seen some statistics that say up to 40+% of all the single-family homes in America are not occupied by an owner, but by a renter. Do you think that continues?
I would say that's accurate. Everybody is looking at it. I saw a report early this week that they think it's the big hedge funds, Wall Street, buying 1,000 units here, 2,000 units there. In reality, almost 90% of the rental properties of single-family houses are owned by individuals. How many people out there that have 5 rental properties, 6 rental properties? And so it's not the big companies. However, there are some companies right now that are buying and building entire subdivisions, 1,000 houses, same builder, buying in mass and just buying them and making them rentals instead of buying them to sell them. So it's an impact on the market, but it isn't that big of an impact. In the book that I just wrote, it's coming out in March, The Perfect 10, it's talking about the leadership lessons that we learn from ourselves and from the real leaders in the business like Amazon and Google and so on. And so when we started evaluating Remax, we kept thinking we had the best agents, and that's why we lived through 8 recessions, why we lived through 9 political climates. In reality, we came up with a different idea. I've often heard people say that the strongest of the species survives, and that was Darwin, supposedly. If you look it up, that isn't what he said. He said the most adaptable of the species survives. So the dinosaurs were here 100 million years ago, and they're gone. The mosquito is still here 100 million years later. And so who's the most adaptable? So for a real estate agent, real estate buyers and sellers, who's the most adaptable to the current circumstances? And that means you have to be able to, lean in on a different method of doing business. You can't do today's business with yesterday's methods and expect to be in business tomorrow.
Well, you've been in business a long time, so you've been changing the game up a long time, and it's phenomenal. Let me just ask you a quick list of questions. You're going to say you love it or hate it, okay?
Okay.
All right. Artificial intelligence.
Love it.
College. Going to college.
I think for the right person, it's awesome, but I think we put too much value on a college education, and we've lost the tradesman.
Agree.
I drove NASCAR and had my own NASCAR team for 10 years, and these were high school educated people. They knew more about technology in building our motors and that sort of thing than what I knew about technology as a businessman. And so college is a great thing. Is it worth the value? Is an apprenticeship and a good trade even more important? I think it's an individual decision.
Okay, brings me to this one. Being in a trade or being in sales? Which one would you pick?
Well, that's the personality of the person. I'm fit for sales.
Yeah.
It's something I'm passionate about. In a trade, I'm not a very handy person.
Okay, me either. Buying a house in 2024, yay or nay?
If you can get it at the right price, yes.
Buying a house for cash flow, not living in it, but investing in it in 2024.
If you can get it at the right price, absolutely.
Donald Trump.
Mixed emotions. I like some of the decisions he made as president. I don't like the image of being a New York brawler, calling people's names. I think it kind of takes a little bit away from the essence of being a president.
Okay, Joe Biden.
I think he's incompetent. I don't think he's medically fit for office.
Which one would you rather have, the brawler or the incompetent?
I'm waiting to see if we get any other choices.
Okay, let me go to another choice. Michelle Obama.
That would not be my choice.
Okay.
The fact that she lived with the president doesn't mean that she has the presidential thinking abilities or anything else.
Yeah. EXP.
A different concept than us. I think they're a good company.
You're so political, man. You're so political. I was hoping at this point you'd be like, come out brawling. Compass.
Overspent to try to grow. Like everybody else, claimed they had the best technology in the world.
Yeah. Do they make it?
They didn't. I think they've got a big enough size that they can probably make it.
Okay. And any last advice you would have for people in 2024, Dave, to ensure they're successful?
Advice in 2024 to do what?
To be successful in 2024.
Yeah. The secrets to success are not secret. You don't become successful by accident in most cases. I was certainly fairly well uneducated, but in the last 55 years of my life, I've gone to hundreds of seminars. I've read thousands of books. I've been mentored by 15 or 20 really amazing people. And so being a lifelong learner, you imitate what you respect. And so I think that if you want to talk leadership, the number one thing that a leader does is they sell hope. If you look at Martin Luther King, he was selling hope, not just to his own race, but to the human race, that we could all get along together better and there could be success for everybody. If you look at somebody like Kennedy, he was selling hope. Camelot, a young look at how the world is going to be.
That was the good days, huh?
Yeah. And so if you look at anybody that's an incredible leader, and you can go to religion if you want, I would say that Jesus was certainly an incredible leader of some kind, and he was selling hope of humanity to everybody. So if you want to be successful, you got to be in the right environment. And either you're going to be the leader of that environment or you're going to follow a leader who's going to make you more successful than you can be on your own. There's just as many opportunities going on in the industry right now, all the industries right now, as there has ever been. I'm a private investor. The last couple of years, I've bought a couple food concepts, and they're extremely successful. So it's just, you go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and you work until midnight and try it again the next day. And once you're successful enough, you can hire enough people, you don't have to work those hours.
Dave, how important is money to the average family out there?
Well, I think money's very important. Unfortunately, the inflation that we've gone through in the last 2 or 3 years has hurt everybody, but worst of all, it's hurt the low-income people.
Dave Liniger, New York Times best-selling author of My Next Step. He's got a new book coming out, ladies and gentlemen, called The Perfect 10 in March. He revolutionized the real estate industry 45 years ago with a company called the Remax business model. He's spoken to 3 million people, 30 countries. He's been on Forbes, Entrepreneur, Fortune. 2010, Bloomberg Business Week called him one of the 50 most powerful people in real estate. Dave, I appreciate you being on Power Players here at the Cardone Zone.
Well, thank you, Grant. I'm going to look into your conferences. I'm fascinated with the attendance that you've got.
And thank you so much for being a success, my friend.
Okay, good luck to you.
Thank you. Salute.